want to set up the meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus, et cetera.
Sure, yeah. This is kind of rough stuff, but it's at the early part of an administration. It was pretty clear from Congressman Cummings that he'd like to meet with the president and many other members of the Congressional Black Caucus as well. April Ryan, who is something of a fixture here at the White House, has been here for a long time, making it clear that it's not her job as a journalist to set up meetings between politicians and the President of the United States. So certainly awkward, but perhaps the beginning of a dialogue between the President and some African-American leaders in the country to try to get the ball rolling on some of the issues the President says he wants to do.
Right. I mean, this is what he largely campaigned on in inner cities, saying, you know, his words, what do you have to lose? Vote for me, trying to get more African-American voters on board to support his candidacy. The question now becomes, what is he going to do as Commander-in-Chief to implement those promises that he made on the campaign trail? He did meet and mark National Black History Month by meeting with some of his supporters on the campaign who are African-Americans, including Ben Carson, Omarosa Manigat, the former Apprentice contestant who now works at the White House. However, that meeting, Joe, did not include members of the NAACP or members of the National Urban League, something else the president was criticized for.
And add to that, I don't think we've talked too much about it because it was sort of forgotten in the run-up to the inauguration, but there was also that dust-up with the civil rights icon, Congressman John Lewis, who indicated that, in his view, this was not a legitimate presidency or words to that effect because of questions about Russian interference, and the president responding essentially that John Lewis was all talk. Right. So that came right around the middle of January, which, by the way, was about the time the White House was actually the incoming president, the inauguration committee was getting ready for President Trump to be inaugurated. And at the same time, he was thinking about coming to the museum. But that date got changed, we're told, because of the Secret Service saying it wasn't secure enough to do it on such short notice.
Joe,
so it's a big swirl.
Oh, I apologize for interrupting you. Stay with me. Let's bring in our colleague, Mark Preston, who also joins us from Washington as we await the president. We've gotten what they call, Mark, the 2-minute warning, so the president could walk out at any moment. But what do you expect to hear? We just heard a little bit of what he said to MSNBC, talking about the importance, the symbolic importance of this museum and many people coming to it. We heard him address this wave of anti-Semitism across the country. But after the dust-up to April Ryan in that exchange at the press conference last week, what do you expect to hear from the president after this tour of the museum today on these issues?
Well, very likely, Poppy, he will be more subdued in his tone in discussing the symbolism of the African American Museum. There's a lot of controversy, actually, about where that was going to be placed along the mall when it was being built. I mean, Joe and I had covered that several years ago, but I think you are going to hear Donald Trump be a little bit more softer in his delivery in how he says things. I do think we will hear him talk about, the anti-Semitism, this wave of anti-Semitism we've seen, going across the country. In many ways, this is an easy layup for Donald Trump, for him to come out there and to talk about Black History Month, the contributions of African Americans to this nation. And quite frankly, if he's smart, he will try to tie some of his economic policies and what he's trying to do with infrastructure, building across the country, into creating more jobs.
Stay with me. We're watching as the president is walking in along with Ivanka Trump, Ben Carson and his wife, Senator Tim Scott. Let's listen to the president.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's a great honor to be here. This was some beautiful morning, and what a job they've done, like few others have been able to do. I am very, very proud of Lonnie Bunch. The work and the love that he has in his heart for what he's done is, I always talk about, you need enthusiasm, you need really love for anything you do it successfully. And Lonnie, you are where? Come on. Where's Lonnie? You should be up here, Lonnie. Come on. And David, we have to get David up here too. David Scorton is tremendous, and he was singing Lonnie's praises all morning long. So You two should at least be here, so we appreciate it very much. And David Rubenstein, who's here someplace. He is, come on, David, you have to get up here, David. You certainly deserve it. He's a very, very successful guy who spends money doing great things, and he's been a great help to so many different groups, and this one in particular. Thank you. It's a privilege to be here today. This museum is a beautiful tribute to so many American heroes. Heroes like Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, Rosa Parks, the Greensboro students, and the African American Medal of Honor recipients, among so many other really incredible heroes. It's amazing to see. I went, we did a pretty comprehensive tour, but not. I could stay here for a lot longer, believe me. It's really incredible. I'm deeply proud that we now have a museum that honors the millions of African American men and women who built our national heritage, especially when it comes to faith, culture, and the unbreakable American spirit. My wife was here last week and took a tour, and it was something that she's still talking about. Ivanka is here right now. Hi, Ivanka. And it really is very, very special. It's something that, frankly, if you and I'm honored to be the second city from Spotswood Rice, a runaway slave who joined the Union Army. He believed that his fellow African Americans always looked to the United States as the promised land of universal freedom. Today and every day of my presidency, and for every American. So important, nothing more important. This tour was a meaningful reminder of why we have to fight bigotry, intolerance, and hatred in all of its very ugly forms. The anti-Semitic threats targeting our Jewish community and community centers are horrible and are painful. Still must be done to root out hate and prejudice and evil. Carson and his beautiful family, Candy and the whole family, special to accompany him and his family for the first time seeing the Carson exhibit. Great guy. And he can tell you better than me, but I'll tell you what, we really started something with Ben. We're very, very proud of him. Hopefully next week he'll get his approval, about 3 or 4 weeks late. And you're doing better than most, right? But the Democrats, they'll come along. I have no doubt they'll come along. But Ben is going to do a fantastic job at HUD. I have absolutely no doubt he will be one of the great ever in that position. He grew up in Detroit and had very little. He defied every statistic. He graduated from Yale, and he went on to the University of Michigan's medical school. Surgeon, saved many lives and helped many, many people. We're going to do great things in our African American communities together. Ben's going to work with me very, very closely. And HUD has a meaning far beyond housing. If properly done, it's a meaning that's as big as anything there is. And Ben will be able to find that true meaning and the true meaning of HUD as its secretary. So I just look forward to that. I look forward to watching that. He'll do things that nobody ever thought of. I also want to thank Senator Tim Scott for joining us today. A friend of mine, a great, great senator from South